I work with the industry, with the state institutions and international institutions. I've seen a vast amount of information on AI that is the future, and we have 3 dots here. And we can insert any sector, any domain, sphere of life. It's the future of the public life, industry, educational system, and so on and so forth. Now, we wanted to show you some not only use cases and opportunities for implementation of these use cases in Industry 4.0, but we also wanted to show you a road that AI must cover and the various factors that impact implementation. So 15 minutes is very little time, even 30 minutes for AI. It's extremely little, so without dwelling on details, let's talk about some details, technological aspects, real benefits, a law or legal environment, and the social aspect concerning workers. So first of all, I would like to tell you that AI is an element of the foundations of Industry 4.0. Well, in terms of the technology itself, myself, I am a technology specialist, not talking about cycles of several years. Technologies do not emerge every year or every month, but every week there is some new algorithm, a new architecture for AI, both in shallow and deep learning, that can be developed, considered, or implemented. And what I've seen in discussions with decision makers considering the implementation of AI, it's very often the argument of the legacy of old, some systems that are still operational in companies that want to become Industry 4.1. Those legacy systems are very old. They cannot cooperate with one another. They require a very high costs in terms of operations, so they are not fit for cooperation with the big data systems or AI systems. So previous speakers mentioned robot automation as an important technology. In my opinion, it's a kind of adhesive that makes it possible to communicate between those systems, communicate with AI. But if we were to build a company from scratch, it would be worthwhile to invest in twinning before we move on to AI. Now, there are also discussions about whether AI is a transformational lever for the entire industry indeed. If the potential of AI is very big, it is tangible, as it was shown in the previous presentation. But what is exciting for me is the potential for the development of new products and services and new streams of income flows based on big data use, processing, predictive analytics, and prescriptive analytics, which can be also implemented. So we're talking about transformation, but little is said about the development of new products and services. Even if we take both aspects into account, it quite rarely comes up in discussions. Everyone would like to take advantage of AI. We don't know how, without specific legal regulations, everybody would like to be AI. What I liked yesterday, someone said that AI is not a race, it's not a sprint. In other words, but it's a marathon that must be very well thought out in every organization. In terms of the development of the technology, those technologies can evolve so rapidly that time is needed for the technology specialists and business specialists to make sure that the series of algorithms that are going to be implemented machine learning to provide long-term business results. Speaking about long-term business outcomes, well, what do I mean here? When I talk to decision makers and boards of directors, I often hear that we as a company, we have invested tens, hundreds of millions in the development of AI in our company. We have a number of competence centers across Europe and tens or hundreds of proofs of concept how AI can help us in our company. And then I have a very specific question. Now, how many proofs of concept have been actually implemented in production at a large scale? Now, then everybody gets silent in the room. Obviously, this area has a lot of use cases. We have a pilot's slow pilot purge. In terms of AI implementation, we often focus on the concept and identification of use cases instead of implementation and just realizing this value for business. The question is whether we can take the entire machine learning model and deliver it for the company to use on a daily basis using existing data and create value added rather than check whether we could be AI in the future. Now, around this, we must talk about legal environment and national strategy. In 2018, the Digital Poland Foundation published a review of AI development strategies around the world. So we analyzed Great Britain, France, Germany, China, United States, and not only how the countries trying to define AI, how they're trying to address very specific legal problems, but also we looked into their motivations. In 2018, the Polish Ministry of Digitization also published a strategy, the first tangible document on the part of the Polish government, creating foundations for AI development in Poland last year. A policy for the development of AI in Poland until 2027 was submitted for social consultations. So organizations, it's not only organizations but governments that get interested now. We need to take a broader look at the EU as a whole. Being a technology specialist, I miss something palpable, tangible in terms of technology. And I read those documents and indeed I can see an increasing, emerging understanding of what deep learning is, what big data is, and machine learning, so on and so forth. It's a quotation from one of the latest documents of the European Commission that defines the importance of data as the main driving force for the development not only of the industry, artificial intelligence, but the whole EU. So data is the lifeblood of economic development. This statement enables a connection between technology and the legal environment. In February 19th, the EU Commission published 3 documents, but I would highly recommend them. Each of them is about 20 pages long. So, EU strategy on data, white paper on artificial intelligence in the EU, establishment of trust centers and excellence centers, and the report on security and implications, legal implications. Very, very concrete steps for the next 2.5 years, very specific legal solutions, and also a very interesting way of showing where else we have a lot of blank areas in terms of technology or law where we need to put in a lot of work. So I would highly commend those documents. Now, moving on to the last factor, human factor here, I'd like to mention a certain figure, 57%. What is that? The percentage of the EU population with basic digital literacy. Now, by 2025, that figure is predicted to increase to 65%. Now, looking at the industry's ambitions of the various countries, it's definitely insufficient. Now, what are the consequences for Industry 4.0? First of all, it will be increasingly difficult to get the right workers that will be able to maintain those technologies, not to mention implement them. The worker rotation will be faster, and the cost of keeping workers will increase. Now, statistics show not where we can get data scientists, but how to keep them in place. We can also have seen a lot of statistics showing why those workers are likely to leave. The good news is that if we define the main profession dealing with data, and the machine learning data are critical by 2025, the number of workers in this area will double. So this is good news. On the other hand, as I mentioned, right now we have 350,000 job openings in the ICT sector in the EU. For comparison, in 2017, the number of openings was only 100,000, so it's still only 100,000 more, so they're still fighting for workers. So there's a lot being said about worker augmentation, education, upskilling, cooperation with academia. Now, I'd like to appeal to you as decision makers to make sure this so that this would not end with the workers. Of course, there are specialists who know the basics of machine learning, but I think we should understand the risks involved. Now, I left the last puzzle piece as social education. Digital Poland Foundation decided to get involved in very noble initiative called AI Challenge to enable free of charge education to Polish society on the basics of AI and the training of at least 1% of the population in terms of what AI is and provide some in-depth insights for them. It goes much further than this hashtag. We have a very concrete cooperation both between universities, the private sector, the public sector. We have two examples here, Novika and Artificial Intelligence org PL, where every citizen can get free of charge training, or even they can get certified. And I would like to suggest to spread word among your workers and advise them to take advantage of one of these sources so that they could better understand what AI is about. Now, we started a discussion about why Industry 4.0 needs artificial intelligence. I'd like to reverse this question and say why does AI need Industry 4.0? AI is not a new concept, it's 60 years old. So, as a matter of fact, in order to when we think about academia or software developers working at home on non-profit projects, let's say open source projects, the difference is like this: data and very concrete business needs. Now you, as decision makers, as representatives of various entities, creating the future, shaping the future of Industry 4.0, you have those data that are essential for the implementation of AI. So we need to have, on the one hand, this infrastructure, computing power, and on the other hand, data. So this cooperation should be encouraged. The specialists in AI need this cooperation more than you need AI. So I'd also reverse this question. AI is not only an opportunity for Industry 4.0, but indeed, it's even truer that Industry 4.0